On the morning of December 15, 2006, Charles Watterson had a good life. He had a loving fiancée and an upcoming marriage, a full and active personal life, and was driving to work for a job that he loved and that was financially very rewarding. However, Jimmy Messer was about to change all that. Mr. Messer, a West Virginia Department of Transportation Division of Highways employee, was following Charlie Watterson on Big Sandy Road that morning. When Charlie slowed down for a hairpin turn just before a one-lane underpass, Jimmy Messer slammed into him from the rear and changed his life forever.
I've lost my physical ability to do anything. Well, I still do a little, but I've lost the ability to earn income. Lost the ability to fish hunt, enjoy life with my children. It's been really trying, and it's pretty much taken my life away from me.
It's hard. He's not the person I fell in love with, and I know it's not his fault. And I try not to say anything that makes him feel less of what he is, because it's not his fault, but there's a lot of things that he's changed that I wish we could go back to the way we were.
When questioned by Officer Floyd Watts after the incident, Mr. Messer stated that he was looking at a rock slide on the side of the road, and when he looked back to the road, he was unable to stop.
After arriving on scene, I began the vehicle accident investigation, diagramming the placement of the vehicles, obtaining all the license, insurance, and driver's license information of both drivers, and began to diagram on the accident report the placement of the vehicles. After diagramming and looking at the vehicles, I observed that Vehicle 2 had failed to maintain control and struck Vehicle 1 in the rear end, causing damage to both vehicles. There was a rock slide on the right side of the road. The vehicles were located several feet north of the rock slide in a gravel shoulder. After taking the statements from both drivers, I concluded that Driver 2 had failed to maintain control and failed to observe what traffic was ahead of him, and I annotated that in the report under Driver 2 contributing circumstances, failure to maintain control. This particular accident could have been avoided had driver of Vehicle 2 maintained control of his vehicle and been diligent as to the surroundings of the roadway and beside the roadway.
Jimmy Messer has also given various accounts of his speed, ranging from 15 to 20 miles per hour to 5 to 8 miles per hour or less. He also feels the damage to both cars was cosmetic.
At the time of the accident, what is your estimate of how fast you were traveling?
I would say between 5 and 8 miles an hour. This is all vinyl. This snaps off back here, it snaps off back here. It's just a thin sheet of vinyl. It has a foam backing behind this sheet of vinyl, but the sheet of vinyl is very thin, less than a half an inch. And that would result into why it looks like this, a piece of metal compared to a piece of vinyl. His bumper was metal. If this hood was closed down and you could have closed it down, it would be right there.
So you consider that basically to be cosmetic rather than structural?
Right.
It should be noted that the damages to Mr. Messer's 2002 Dodge Stratus were over $5,500. And Charlie Watterson's 1997 Chrysler Cirrus had over $2,200 worth of damage. Both cars were total losses.
Well, Mr. Messer has testified that he was traveling at 5 to 8 miles per hour before he hit his brakes and before the collision. I have a real problem with that based on the damage to the vehicles. There's structural damage, frame damage to both vehicles, and considerable damage on the Dodge Stratus Messer was driving. I believe that the difference in speed between those two vehicles when they hit was approximately 15 miles an hour. That means, for instance, that if Mr. Watterson was traveling 10 miles an hour, Mr. Messer would have been going 25 when the collision occurred. Mr. Messer said in his deposition he was going 5 to 8 miles an hour or slower at the time. I just don't find the physical evidence to be at all consistent with that. Now I took my estimate of the 15-mile-an-hour speed difference between the vehicles and I ran some further calculations. Those indicated to me, I used momentum and some engineering principles to do that, but those calculations indicated to me that Mr. Watterson's vehicle, his Chrysler Cirrus, experienced an acceleration during this event on the order of 9 to 12 or 13 Gs. If you take some tests that have been done concerning the effect on individuals in the car, that ramps up to something like 25 or 30 Gs of acceleration for Mr. Watterson himself, peak head acceleration that he experienced in this event. Now, 25 to 30 Gs, I can't give you a good comparison to what sort of a daily activity might relate to that, because tests really haven't been run at that level for ethical reasons. There's too much danger of injuring somebody at that level of testing. I would characterize this as something significantly more serious, more severe than your typical shopping center parking lot bump.
Prior to the morning when Jimmy Messer slammed into the back of his car, Charlie Watterson was a vigorous and busy man. He was a skilled and well-compensated member of the Boilermakers Union, had an active life with his fiancée and children, and stayed busy with various projects around their two houses. Now he is permanently disabled and is on full Social Security disability. The financial impact is staggering. Over $49,000 in past medical expenses, over $187,000 in future medical expenses, over $1.4 million in lost wages and benefits, over $70,000 in loss of household services. According to West Virginia law, you take your clients as you find them. Even though a previous spinal fusion had been performed on Charlie Watterson more than 30 years ago, both Drs. Adams and Alberico feel that this accident is the proximate cause of his injuries.
Since I've been seeing Mr. Watterson over the last couple of years, pain has affected him in a number of ways. One, he seemed oftentimes quite distracted, has difficulty focusing, listening to questions, answering questions directly. I've had to ask him questions numerous times. Oftentimes he doesn't make eye contact because he's just seems to be so distracted because of the pain. Other ways that I think pain has affected Charlie is that he's become somewhat socially withdrawn. He's mentioned to me that he doesn't spend time with his friends. He doesn't hang out and visit with his friends like he used to. He's mentioned to me that he feels quite depressed because he's not able to work. He feels, Charlie I think feels like he's less of a person because he's not able to support his wife. And he's mentioned also to me that, for example, he had a very close friend just recently pass away, and he wasn't able to be a pallbearer in the funeral. When I was talking to Charlie about that, he was actually in tears because he felt inadequate because he was not able to participate in that way. I believe within a reasonable degree of medical certainty, the treatment that Mr. Watterson has received under my care has been reasonable and necessary, and as a direct result of the injury sustained in the motor vehicle accident that he had. Even though Mr. Watterson has had surgery, I do not anticipate the surgery completely eliminating his symptoms, although he has reported to me that his headaches have essentially abated, completely disappeared. As far as the pain and stiffness in his neck, it remains. The numbness and tingling into his right hand remains. Mr. Watterson will, for an indefinite period of time, require ongoing medical management.
Mr. Watterson was a patient who came to me with complaints of neck pain and arm pain. He had an automobile accident. An MRI showed that he had a ruptured disc. He began having neck pain almost immediately after the accident, which was progressive. He had failed conservative management. He was treated with pain management for a couple of years. And when I saw him, I told him that he might benefit from removing the herniated disc that was most likely caused by the accident. So we admitted him to the hospital and did what's called an anterior cervical discectomy and fusion. Basically, it's an incision that's put in the front of the neck. We dissect down to the spine. Obviously, the patient's under general anesthesia, and we remove the disc. Then the hole that we've been working through, we fill with some bone and put a plate in the front so it heals well. They're generally in the hospital for 1 day, as I recall. I think he was in 1 day. He had a fairly good post-operative course. In fact, did seem to improve after the surgery. And I think I've seen him once since the surgery. I think it's clear that to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that the accident caused the herniated disc and resulted in the need for the surgery.
The injuries he suffered as a result of this incident have left him in constant pain and have destroyed his personal life.
Although the work was demanding, the financial end of it was exceptional. With our benefits and what we made just on the straight hours, like $47 an hour. So, but it may take its toll on your body overall. Financially, it was well worth it. I mean, when you could retire at 55 to 60 with $6,000 to $7,000 a month, that was pretty good. So, but not only that, it was just a great bunch of guys. You know, we all pulled our share. There wasn't no lazy asses. They didn't last long, and there was no room for them. We all had to pull hard and pull together.
The accident's done to me has changed a whole lot as far as Charlie and me go. I have to try to take care of 2 households. Have to look after him like a mother would a young child because he can't. I mean, he can take care of himself, but there's things that he shouldn't do, and rather than him try to do it and hurt himself or what have you, I try to take over that role. And it's stressful. I'm mad. It's taken away a lot of our life.
Well, you feel aggravated and then depressed, and then you begin to get pissed off as to there's got to be you put into play why are you where you're at. And or you just gotta suck it up and deal with it. Do the best you can.
We have a house on East Pea Ridge that we were going to move into eventually when we were going to fix it up, paint it, build a closet and a larger bedroom, put a fence around it for our dogs, put carpet down, linoleum, new cabinets, things like that. So it's a larger house, and we were going to move over there and rent this one to have a bigger place for our pets. But we don't have any way of taking care of it right now because about the only thing I could do would be paint.
My plans of doing what I wanted to do when I retired has just been totally erased. It's kind of like the saying says, "If your American dream been turned into a nightmare." That's pretty much what's happened to me.
If the medication, the operation that he's had will help him, I look forward to the future. Otherwise, I don't, because I can't keep living my life walking on eggshells for somebody else.
As you have heard, the impact on Charlie Watterson's life has been devastating. The financial impact totals over $1.7 million, and this pales in comparison to Charlie's loss of ability to enjoy his life, all because Jimmy Messer chose to ignore the basic common sense principles of driving. Keep your eyes on the road. Follow at a safe distance. Maintain control of your vehicle. Drive at a legal and safe speed. Obey speed limit signs. If Mr. Messer had chosen to follow these simple rules, which all drivers are required by law to follow, he could have spared Charlie Watterson the surgeries, suffering, pain, and humiliation he has had to endure.
I'd like for Mr. Messer to just to know and understand all the good times and that he's taken from me and my family. All the holidays, the weekends of hunting, fishing, the good times with Renee and I, far and few between now. I'd just like for him to know what a devastating impact it's put on my whole family.